On my screen right now are two things that have redefined my entire life. The first is a copy of a letter sent from my own lawyer's office on formal letterhead addressed to the place I used to call home. The second is an audio file. That voice belongs to my father, Richard. The threat to destroy the career I have poured my blood, sweat, and tears into building. And the cause for this rage? Because I refused to transfer him $15,200. This wasn't a loan. It was an invoice he sent me, demanding I contribute to the down payment on a luxury apartment for my younger brother, Leo. It would sound like a sick joke if you didn't know that just 1 month earlier, this same family uninvited me from Thanksgiving dinner. The reason, delivered by my mother, Cynthia, was that the presence of a single and practical daughter like me would complicate the perfect image they wanted to project for the wealthy investor family of Leo's new girlfriend. They didn't just exclude me from the family. They wanted me to pay for the privilege of watching my brother live the life they never offered me. This story doesn't just take place in a house. It takes place between two completely different worlds. Their world, the perfectly manicured lawns of Palo Alto, the heart of Silicon Valley, where a person's worth is measured in social connections and investment account balances. And my world in Portland, Oregon, where misty mornings, iron bridges, and a culture of self-reliance taught me that real value comes from integrity and the ability to stand on your own 2 feet. This isn't a story about a typical family squabble. This is a fight for the soul. What do you do when you realize the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally become the biggest threat to your stability and your dignity? Do you bow down or do you fight back? This video is my journey to find that answer. A journey that took me from hurt to a lawyer's conference room, from isolation to a direct confrontation, and finally to redefining the meaning of the words family and self-worth. If you've ever felt like an outsider in your own story, if you've ever had to fight for recognition, then stay, because this story is for you too. To understand the coldness of that lawyer's letter, you have to understand the artificial warmth I grew up in. My family didn't lack love. It lacked fairness in how that love was distributed. Their love was like the sun, and my brother Leo was always the center of the universe, completely basked in its warmth. As for me, I was a distant planet, getting just enough light to keep from freezing over completely. This difference was carved into our lives during our formative years. Picture this. When it was time for college, it was a given that Leo would go to Stanford, the pride of Silicon Valley. My parents talked about it at dinner parties as if it were a fact of nature. They bragged about the exorbitant cost, about the comfortable dorm they would furnish for their artistic genius. But I, Clara, was advised to be practical. The University of Oregon was a great choice, they said. It had a good marketing program, and more importantly, it was far more affordable. I graduated with $95,000 in student loan debt, a figure I spent 6 years grinding to pay off. Leo graduated with 0 debt. The favoritism didn't stop at education. It was present at every milestone. Leo's 21st birthday was a lavish pool party in Palo Alto with stylish friends and expensive champagne. His big gift was presented ceremoniously by my father, the keys to a silver BMW 3 Series, tied with a giant red bow. A few months later, on my birthday, an email appeared in my inbox. Subject, "Happy birthday, sweetie!" Inside was a link to a $79 online cooking course. My mother wrote, "Thought you'd like this to take better care of yourself in Portland." Back then, I tried to rationalize it. I told myself I was stronger, that I didn't need those material things. But the truth is, it was never about the car or the tuition. It was about the message behind them. The message that Leo's success was an investment while mine was an expectation. To understand my parents, you have to understand Palo Alto. Here, you don't just live. You perform your life. Your house, your car, your kids' schools, your vacations. They are all pieces of a larger mosaic of status and success. Leo, with his artistic hair, with the Leica camera around his neck, and his stories of art exhibits in San Francisco, was their first-class ticket in this performance race. He was a living work of art, a testament to the Mitchell family's success and good taste. And me? I was the safe investment, a marketing director in a quirky city up north. I was stable, responsible, I never caused any trouble. I was the reliable backstory, but I was never allowed to outshine the main character. I was the reality, meant to highlight Leo's specialness. And I accepted that role for years. I called home weekly, sent gifts on holidays. I flew home whenever I was asked, smiling and listening to the endless stories about Leo. I thought that was the price of staying connected. Until 2 weeks before last Thanksgiving, my phone rang with Mom on the screen. My heart warmed a little. Maybe this year they'd ask what dish I wanted to bring, or what day I was flying in. Clara, sweetie, my mother's voice came through, unusually sweet. I'm calling about the Thanksgiving plans. I was ready to open my calendar app. Okay, I'm listening. She hesitated for a second. This year, we might be doing things a little differently. You know, Sophia, Leo's new girlfriend, is bringing her whole family over. Sophia's father is a very prominent investor in the tech scene. Oh, that's great, I said, though a chill went down my spine. Yes, she continued, her voice now holding a poorly disguised tension. And so, we need everything to be perfect, to be formal. You know, with you still being single and your job being so far away, your presence, well, it might make things a bit complicated. Complicated. That's the word she used to describe her own daughter. I was silent. My ears were ringing. I could hear my own heartbeat in my chest. The house wasn't under renovation. There wasn't a lack of space. It was my very existence, who I was, the life I had built for myself that had become a complication that didn't fit into the perfect picture they wanted to paint. You understand, don't you, sweetie? My mother asked, her voice rushing to fill the silence. You've always been the understanding one. I don't remember how I answered. I think I just whispered a yes and hung up. I sat in my Portland apartment, looking out at the rain-soaked city, and for the first time in my life, I stopped trying to rationalize anything. I didn't feel sad. I felt hollow. It was the terrifying silence right before a storm breaks. And that storm arrived just a week later in the form of an email containing an invoice for $15,200. That storm didn't arrive with a roar of thunder, but with the dead silence of an email in my inbox. Subject, regarding a family financial matter. From Richard Mitchell. It wasn't a hastily written email. It was a professionally designed PDF with my father's consulting firm logo at the top. A cold, impersonal document. I opened it, and my world seemed to stop spinning for a moment as I read the soulless text. Invoice number 2024-11B. To Ms. Clara Mitchell. Payment due January 15th. Below was an itemized list. Item 1, contribution to Leo Mitchell Real Estate Investment, $12,000. Item 2, interior design and furnishings consulting fee, $3,200. Total due, $15,200. At the bottom was the bank account information and a note in a smaller font. This is an investment in the long-term stability of the family. Your contribution is expected and appreciated. I read it once, then a second time, then a third. The hollowness I felt before was quickly replaced by something else. It wasn't a hot, searing fire of rage that burns everything down. No. My anger was a block of ice, forming slowly, sharp, and crystal clear. It froze the tears before they could fall and made my mind terrifyingly lucid. For years, I had been the understanding one. I had been the independent one. I had been the strong one. Those words, I realized, were just pretty cages they used to lock me in to rationalize their own neglect. Now, they weren't just neglecting me. They wanted to drain the very life I had worked so hard to create. The first person I called was Noah. He didn't say much, just listened to my heavy breathing over the phone. When I finished reading the email aloud, he said only one thing. His steady, warm voice an anchor in the storm. You don't have to decide anything right now. Just breathe. I'm on my way home to you. The second person I called was Mia. Her reaction was the complete opposite. Are they insane? She screamed through the phone, her outrage filling in for my own. Clara, this isn't favoritism anymore. This is exploitation. You are not to pay them a single cent. Do you hear me? Not 1 cent. Noah's calm protection and Mia's righteous fury formed a safety net beneath me. They didn't let me doubt myself. They confirmed that what I was feeling wasn't selfishness or an overreaction. It was an unacceptable violation. And in that moment, I realized a crucial truth. My father didn't send this email as a father. He was acting like a CEO collecting a debt. And you can't respond to a business action with family emotions. You have to answer it with a business strategy of your own. That night, instead of crying, I opened my laptop. Noah sat beside me, saying nothing, simply being present, while I began to plan. My first thought wasn't, how do I get out of this? But rather, how do I make sure this can never happen again? The next morning, I called a law firm. I need a consultation regarding family law and possibly financial harassment. The meeting with the lawyer, a woman named Mrs. Davenport, changed everything. She looked at me, not with pity, but with professional respect. She read the email, reviewed the text messages, and listened to my story. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and said the sentence that set me free. Miss Mitchell, you owe them nothing. Legally, this demand is baseless and ludicrous. Personally, it's an incredible act of emotional manipulation. She gave me ammunition, and I decided to use it. That evening, I executed a two-part plan. The first part was for me, for the inner child who had always felt invisible. I opened a new spreadsheet and created my own invoice. Invoice for emotional damages. The items weren't listed in dollars, but in tears and years of sacrifice. Item 1, the cost of being forced to grow up too soon. Item 2, the cost of forgotten birthdays. Item 3, the cost of paying my own tuition while another was coddled. Total due, one sincere apology, never rendered. The second part was for them. I drafted a short, professional, and emotionless email. Attached was the official letter from Mrs. Davenport, citing legal statutes and clearly stating my position. My hand trembled slightly as I hovered the mouse over the send button on the email addressed to my parents, CCing my lawyer. At the same time, I placed my invoice for emotional damages into an envelope, not to be sent, but to be placed on my desk as a reminder. That click wasn't just sending an email. It was a declaration, an end to the role of the understanding daughter, and the beginning of my own role, scripted by me and directed by me. I had fired the first shot in the revolution for my own self, and I knew the battlefield ahead would be brutal. Silence. That's what came first. A 27-hour silence. During those 27 hours, I lived in a state of high alert. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart seized. I had lit a bomb, and I knew it would detonate. I just didn't know when or how big the blast would be. And then it came. The first explosion wasn't a sound, but the violent vibration of my phone on the table. The screen lit up with the name Dad. I let it ring until it went to voicemail. A few seconds later, a notification appeared. I took a deep breath and pressed play. My father's voice, Richard's, came through, not in hot anger, but in the ice-cold rage of a powerful man being challenged. Abigail, he began. His use of my full name was always a sign of extreme anger. I don't know what game you're playing, but it stops now. A letter from a lawyer? Who do you think you are? I will call the board of directors at your company. I will let them know how unstable and ungrateful you are. I will ruin the reputation you think you've built. Call me back immediately. He didn't ask why. He didn't seek to understand. He just commanded and threatened. This was the voice of a CEO ordering a subordinate, not a father talking to his daughter. I saved the audio file. It was my evidence. The second explosion came almost immediately, but it was more subtle. A series of texts from Mom. Each message was a small, sugar-coated knife. Clara, honey, how could you do this to your family? Your father is furious. I'm worried about his health. I've been crying all morning. What did I do wrong for you to treat us like this? Everything we do is for the good of our children. That includes Leo. Leo, can't you see that helping your brother is helping the family? They were digital tears, a perfect psychological tactic. She didn't confront the issue. She made herself the victim, and me the heartless villain. Next was Leo. His texts were different. They held none of his father's threats or his mother's sentimentality. They were just pure selfishness. Great, Clara. Thanks a lot. Now I'm the one who has to clean up this mess. It's just money. Why do you always have to make everything so dramatic? Do you have any idea that you're ruining the biggest opportunity of my career? Do you ever think about anyone but yourself? In Leo's world, I wasn't a wronged sister. I was just an obstacle to his desires. I could have handled those 3 fronts. I was prepared for them. But I wasn't prepared for what came next. Thus the war was taken outside the nuclear family and thrown into the public arena of extended family and social media. Mia sent me a screenshot. It was a Facebook post from my mother, Cynthia, set to public. My name wasn't in it, but every word was aimed directly at me. She wrote, "Sometimes the greatest pain for a parent is when you sacrifice everything for your children, only for them to grow up successful and forget their roots and their gratitude. It's sad when selfishness can overshadow family bonds. Praying for healing for all the hurting hearts." The post was a masterpiece of passive aggression. It painted a picture of a devoted, suffering mother and a thankless, heartless child, and the flying monkeys immediately swarmed. My phone started exploding with messages from aunts, uncles, and cousins I rarely speak to. Aunt Susan, "Clara, I don't know what happened, but family is everything. You should call and apologize to your parents." Uncle David, "Don't let money ruin what's most important, kiddo. Your parents sacrificed a lot for you." Cousin Michael, "You're making your mom cry." Not cool. No one asked for my side of the story. No one cared about the truth. They heard one version, that of a hurting mother, and they launched their attack. I had been convicted in a trial I wasn't even invited to attend. Within 48 hours, I had gone from an independent woman to the entire family's public enemy. They had succeeded in completely isolating me. I sat in my Portland apartment, my phone screen still glowing with accusations. The feeling was no longer icy anger. It was a chilling loneliness. They didn't just want me to pay. They wanted me to disappear. They wanted to erase my version of the truth so that only their story remained. And in a moment of weakness, I wondered, would they succeed? I was in the eye of the storm. The accusations were like walls, closing in around me, getting thicker by the day, until I felt like I was in a room with no doors, with no air to breathe. Loneliness is a cruel weapon, and my family wielded it with expertise. They made me believe that I was the problem, that my outrage was unreasonable, that my boundaries were an act of selfishness. In my weakest moments, I almost believed it. I almost picked up the phone, ready to surrender, ready to apologize just to make the noise stop, just to be let back into the artificial warmth I was so used to. But then, something unexpected happened. Amidst the storm of notifications from relatives I barely knew, a single text message appeared from a name I never expected: Aunt Helen. Aunt Helen is my father's sister. She was an enigma in the family, a smart, independent woman who lived in another state and rarely attended the loud family gatherings. When I was little, I thought she didn't like us. Now, I started to wonder if maybe she just disliked the plays we were always performing. Her text was short, free of judgment or cheap advice. She wrote, "Clara, I hear things are not good, but I'd like to hear your side of the story. Are you free to talk?" It was the first lifeline thrown my way. For the first time, someone didn't assume I was in the wrong. For the first time, someone wanted to listen. I called her immediately. That conversation changed my entire perspective. Aunt Helen's voice was calm and full of compassion. She listened to my whole story, from the car, the tuition, to the Thanksgiving rejection and the $15,200 invoice. When I finished, she wasn't shocked at all. She just sighed, a sigh that felt like it had been held in for 30 years. "Clara," she said softly, "this didn't start with you. It started long before you were born." And then she told me a story. The story of her and my father's childhood. My father, Richard, was always my grandparents' golden boy. He was smart, handsome, the pride of the family, got into a prestigious Ivy League school. And Aunt Helen, she was the practical daughter who had to put herself through community college. Every mistake my father made was overlooked, while her every success was taken for granted. She told me about how she had to lend my father money when he started his business, a loan that was never repaid. She told me how my grandparents favored their grandchildren, Leo and me, in the exact same way they had treated their own children. It was like a loud click inside my head. All the disconnected pieces from the past 32 years suddenly fell into place. It wasn't about me. It was never about me. I wasn't an inadequate daughter. I was simply born to play a pre-written role in a multi-generational family drama. My pain wasn't my own. It was a legacy. And that realization, while painful, brought a strange sense of freedom. It didn't erase the hurt, but it removed the burden of self-blame. We talked for nearly 2 hours. When I hung up, I felt a stability I hadn't had in days. The wall of isolation around me had a crack in it. Just as I was sitting on my sofa, lost in thought about family cycles, the doorbell rang, a sharp, somewhat urgent ring, completely out of place in my quiet Portland apartment building. I wasn't expecting anyone. Noah was at work, and Mia wouldn't show up unannounced. With a sense of dread, I looked through the peephole, and my heart stopped. Standing in the hallway under the sallow yellow light was Leo. My little brother. He looked tired from the flight, wearing an expensive coat that was completely wrong for the drizzling Portland rain. He was standing at my door, thousands of miles from the safety of Palo Alto. He didn't call, he didn't text, he just showed up. I knew instantly. This wasn't a social visit. My family had sent an emissary, and when I opened that door, I knew I wasn't just facing Leo. I was confronting the entire family system he represented. But this time, there was a difference. This time, I understood the rules of the game. I took a deep breath and turned the doorknob. "Hello, Leo. I don't believe I invited you," I said, my voice calmer than I expected. He looked at me, his face a mixture of arrogance and anxiety. "We need to talk, Clara. You've really made a huge mess." I stepped back, pulling the door wide in a gesture of cold invitation. "Come in, Leo, but leave the accusations at the door." He walked into my apartment, and the contrast was immediate. Leo, in his designer coat and expensive leather shoes, looked completely out of place amidst the furniture I'd hunted for in thrift stores, the plants I'd grown myself, and the art by local artists hanging on my walls. This was my world, built on effort and personality, not on someone else's money. This was my territory. I went to the kitchen and put the kettle on for tea, an absurdly normal act under the tense circumstances. The action showed him and me that I was in control. "You don't have to do that," Leo said, a hint of annoyance in his voice. "I'm not here for tea." "Then what are you here for, Leo?" I asked, turning to lean against the kitchen counter. "You know why," he began, clearly reciting a pre-rehearsed script. "You've really made a huge mess. Mom and Dad are heartbroken. You have no idea how sad you've made Mom. All you have to do is call, apologize, and we can sort out the money stuff quietly." I listened patiently until he was finished. I didn't interrupt. I didn't argue. When he was done, I just looked my little brother straight in the eye. "You're reciting their words, Leo. I don't want to talk to a mouthpiece. I want to talk to my brother." He blinked, slightly thrown. "Forget what Mom and Dad said," I continued, my voice quiet now, but sharp. "I want you to answer one question for me and answer it with your own truth. Do you personally, really think that me being uninvited from Thanksgiving, only to get an invoice a week later for $15,000 for your apartment, is fair?" Silence. The simple question hung in the air between us. He couldn't say yes without admitting to the insane absurdity of it. He couldn't say no without betraying his golden boy status and the entire system that nurtured him. He was trapped. You don't understand," he stammered, his initial confidence gone. "It's more complicated than that." "No," I cut in, my voice firmer this time. "It's not complicated, Leo. It's just right or wrong. And you know what the answer is." And that's when his defensive walls crumbled, not with a loud bang, but with a slow crack. "So what do you want me to do?" He nearly shouted, desperation creeping into his voice. "Refuse their money? Move into a crappy apartment? I'm not like you, Clara. I don't know any other way. I don't know how to live without them." The last of his anger dissolved, leaving a raw and pathetic truth. He sank into my armchair, burying his face in his hands. His voice was now just a whisper. "I'm jealous of you," he said, the words coming out with difficulty. "I always have been. You could just move to a new city, build everything yourself. You have real friends, a job you're great at. You have Noah. You have yourself." He looked up, and for the first time in years, I saw my little brother, not a pampered prince. "I'm afraid that without their money, without their approval, I'm nothing. But you don't need anyone, and you're still Clara." The confrontation ended not with a fight, but with a confession. That night, for the first time in our lives, we talked like two adults about the fears, the pressures, and the expectations that had shaped us. 6 months have passed since that day. Things didn't become a fairy tale. My relationship with my parents is still distant and awkward. But a month after my talk with Leo, I received an envelope with no letter. Inside was only a check from my father's personal account, made out to Clara Mitchell for the exact amount of $15,200. I never cashed that check. I framed it and hung it in my office. It wasn't money. It was an admission. Leo and I started having cautious monthly calls. We still have a lot to repair, but at least we've started speaking the language of truth. But the biggest change didn't come from them. It came from me. Standing up for myself freed me from the need to seek their approval. And when I stopped looking for it, I began to clearly see the good things that were already in my life. 2 months ago, on a hike under the trees in Oregon, Noah got down on one knee and asked me to be his wife. I said yes without a moment's hesitation, because his love is a solid foundation, not a stage performance. My career took off. My newfound confidence helped me pitch bold campaigns, and I was promoted, managing my own team. That invoice was sent to diminish me, to remind me of my place. But in the end, it became the receipt for my freedom. It taught me that boundaries aren't walls to push others away, but lines drawn to protect the sacred space within yourself, where your value is defined by you and no one else. The $15,200 check is still framed in my office. It's not a trophy, it's a map. It marks a journey from being hurt to healing myself, from resigned silence to finding my own voice. The engagement ring sparkling on my finger isn't a fairy tale happy ending, but a symbol of a future I am building for myself, based on respect and genuine love, not on obligation or performance. But this story doesn't really end there, because after the fight is over, we have to learn to live in peace. Not the peace of surrender, but the peace that comes from knowing your own worth. And on that journey, I've distilled some truths that I believe can be a torch for anyone feeling lost in their own family story. The first truth, and perhaps the hardest to accept, family love is not always unconditional. We're taught from a young age that blood is the most sacred bond. But the truth is, sometimes the people closest to us are the ones who cause the deepest wounds, because we let them, in the name of family. Loving yourself means having the courage to recognize that any relationship, no matter with whom, that consistently hurts you, devalues you, and drains your energy is not a healthy one. Admitting this doesn't mean you're ungrateful. It means you're starting to respect yourself. The second truth: your feelings are data, not a weakness. For years, I dismissed my feelings of being slighted. I told myself I was too sensitive or overthinking things. But those feelings, the injustice, the sadness, the anger, they are your soul's alarm system. They are precious data telling you that an important boundary is being violated. Don't ignore them. Listen to them. Ask them, what are you trying to tell me? Your feelings are the compass that points you in the right direction to protect yourself. And the third truth, the one that made the biggest difference: proactively build your chosen family. The family we're born into is an accident of birth. But the people we choose to keep in our lives, that is a deliberate choice. Look at people like Noah, like Mia, or even Aunt Helen. They are my chosen family. People who listen without judgment, support without demanding, and see my true value even when I doubt it myself. Invest your time and energy in the people who lift you up, whose presence makes you feel seen and valued. These are the relationships that form the true foundation of your life. And now, I want to hear from you, because I know I'm not alone in this story. How many of you have had to play the role of the understanding one? How many of you have felt like you had to pay an invisible price for your family's peace? Share your story in the comments below. You don't have to go into detail if you don't want to. Even just a, I know that feeling, is enough to let someone else know they're not alone. Let's make the comments section of this video a campfire, where we can share and give each other warmth. Your experience could be the lighthouse for someone lost in the fog. If this story and these lessons resonated with you, please give this video a like so it can reach more people. And hit that subscribe button if you believe in the power of building a life based on self-respect and healthy boundaries. Remember, you are the author, director, and main character in the story of your life. Never hand that pen to anyone else. Thanks for listening.